I am Lady Rain, and you are watching the Reader's Nook. We are reading The Dead Zone, and Johnny has woke up and gotten quite a shock, hasn't he? So, we're on to Chapter 7. Why is that not recording it, though? Doesn't say how much. The heck? Okay. Phew! There it goes. Alright. I was trying to figure out what was going on because the time wasn't going. But it's going now, so that's a good thing. A very good thing. So, I'm just going to give it a few minutes. Let's see if anybody else comes in. We shall see. We'll give it another minute and then we'll start. Because we have an 8 o'clock time and I'm on time today. Alright, so we left off with Johnny drinking some ginger ale, and he drank all of it and said it tasted bitter. So, shall we begin? Chapter 7, Part 1. Close your eyes, Dr. Wezek asked. He was a small, roly-poly man with an incredible styled head of hair and spade sideburns. Johnny couldn't get over all that hair. A man with a haircut like that in 1970 would have had to fight his way out of every bar in eastern Maine. And a man Wezek's age would have been considered ripe for committal. All that hair, man. He closed his eyes. His head was covered with electrical contact points. The contacts sent to wires that fed into a wall console EEG. Dr. Brown and a nurse stood by the console, which was calmly extruding a wide sheet of graph paper. Johnny wished the nurse could have been Marie Michaud. He was a little scared. Dr. Wezek touched his eyelids and Johnny jerked. Nah, hold still, Johnny. These are the last two. Just there. All right, doctor, the nurse said. A low hum. All right, Johnny, are you comfortable? Feels like there are pennies on my eyelids. Yes. You'll get used to that in no time. Now let me explain to you this procedure. I'm going to ask you to visualize a number of things. You will have about 10 seconds on each, and there are 20 things to visualize in all. You understand? Yes. Very fine. We begin. Dr. Brown? All ready. Excellent. Johnny, I ask you to see a table. On this table, there is an orange. Johnny thought about it. He saw a small card table with folding steel legs. Resting on it, a little off-center, was a large orange with the word sun-kissed stamped on its hockey skin. Good, Wezek said. Can that gadget see my orange? Nah, well, yes. In a symbolic way it can. The machine is tracing your brainwaves. We are searching for blocks, Johnny, areas of impairment, possible indications of continuing intracranial pressure. Now I ask you to shush with the questions. All right. Now I ask you to see a television. It is on, but not receiving a station. Johnny saw a television that was in an apartment, had been in his apartment. The screen was bright gray with snow. The tips of the rabbit ears were wrapped in tinfoil for better reception. Good. The series went on. For the 11th item, Wezek said, now I ask you to see a picnic table on the left side of a green lawn. Johnny thought about it, and in his mind saw a lawn chair. He frowned. Something wrong, Wezek asked. No, not at all, Johnny said. He thought harder. Picnics. wieners, a charcoal brazier. Associate, damn it, associate. How hard is it to see a picnic table in your mind? You've only seen 1,000 of them in your life. Associate your way to it. Plastic spoons and forks, paper plates, his father in a chef's hat, holding a long fork in one hand and wearing an apron with the motto printed across in its tipsy letters. The cook needs a drink. His father making burgers, and then they would all go sit at. Ah, here it came. Johnny smiled, and then the smile faded. This time the image in his mind was of a hammock. Shit. No picnic table? It's a weird thing. I can't quite seem to think of it. I mean, I know what it is, but I can't see it in my mind. Is that weird? Or is that weird? Never mind. Try this one. A globe of the world, sitting on the hood of a pickup truck. That one was easy. On the 19th item, a rowboat lying at the foot of a street sign. Who thinks these things up? Johnny wondered. It happened again. It was frustrating. He saw a beach ball lying beside a gravestone. He concentrated harder and saw a turnpike overpass. Wessex soothed him. A few moments later, the wires were removed from his head and eyelids. Why couldn't I see those things? He asked, his eyes moving from Wessex to Brown. What's the problem? Hard to say with any real certainty, Brown said. It may be a kind of spot amnesia, or it may be that the accident destroyed a small portion of your brain. And I mean a really microscopic bit. We don't really know what the problem is, but it's pretty obvious that you've lost a number of trace memories. We happen to strike two. You'll probably come across more. Wessex said abruptly, You sustained a head injury when you were a child, yes? Johnny looked at him doubtfully. There's an old scar, Wessex said. There is a theory, Johnny, backed by a good deal of statistical research. Research that is nowhere near complete, Brown said, almost friendly. That is true, but the theory supposes that the people who tend to recover from long-term coma are people who have sustained some sort of brain injury at a previous time. It is as though the brain has made some adaptation as a result of the first injury that allows it to survive the second. It's not proven, Brown said. He seemed to disprove Wessex even bringing it up. Scar is there, Wessex said. Can you not remember what happened to you, Johnny? I would guess you must have blacked out. Did you fall down the stairs? Bicycle accident, perhaps? The scar says this happened to a young boy. Johnny thought hard, shook his head. Have you asked my mom and dad? Neither of them can remember any sort of head injury. Nothing occurs to you? For a moment, something did. A memory of smoke, black and greasy, smelling like rubber, cold. Then it was gone. Johnny shook his head. Isaac sighed and struggled, and then shrugged. You must be tired. Yes, a little bit. Brown sat on the edge of the examination table. It's 11:15. You've worked hard this morning. Dr. Wessex and I will answer a few questions if you like. Then you go up to your room for a nap, okay? Okay, Johnny said. The picture you took of my brain, the CAT scan, Wessex nodded. Computerized axial tomography. He took a box of chiclets and shook 3 of them into his mouth. The CAT scan is really a series of brain x-rays, Johnny. The computer highlights the pictures and... What did it tell you? How long have I got? What is this how long have I got stuff, Brown asked. It sounds like a line from an old movie. I've heard that people who come out of long-term comas don't always last so long, Johnny said. They lapse back. It's like a light bulb going really bright before it burns out for good. Wessex laughed hard. It was a hearty, bellowing laugh. It was something of a wonder that he didn't choke on his gum. Oh, such melodrama. He put a hand on Johnny's chest. You think Jim and I are babies in this field? Nah, we're neurologists. What you Americans call high-priced talent, which means we are only stupid about the functions of the human brain instead of out-and-out ignoramus. So I tell you, yes, there have been lapse backs, but she will not lapse. I think we can say that, Jim. Yes? Okay. Yes, Brown said. We haven't been able to find very much in the way of significant impairment, Johnny. There's a guy in Texas who was in a coma for 9 years. He's now a bank loan officer, and he's been doing that job for 6 years. Before that, he was a teller for 2 years. There's a woman in Arizona who was down for 12 years. Something went wrong with the anesthesia while she was in labor. Now she's in a wheelchair, but she's alive and aware. She came out of it in 1969 and met the baby she had delivered 12 years before. The baby was in the 7th grade and an honor student. Am I going to be in a wheelchair? Johnny asked. I can't straighten my legs out. My arms are a little better, but my legs. He trailed off, shaking his head. The ligaments shorten, Rizek said. Yes, that's why comatose patients begin to pull into what we call the prefetal position. But we know more about the physical degeneration that occurs in comas than we used to. We are better at handling it, holding it off. You have been exercised regularly by the hospital physical therapist, even in your sleep. And different patients react to coma in different ways. Your deterioration has been quite slow, Johnny. As you say, your arms are remarkably responsive and able. There has been deterioration. Your therapy will be long, and should I lie to you? No, I don't think so. It would be long and painful. You will shed your tears. You may come to hate your therapist. You may come to fall in love with your bed. And there will be operations. Only one if you're very, very lucky. But perhaps as many as 4 to lengthen those ligaments. Hi! These operations are still new. They may succeed completely, partially, or not at all. And yet, as God wills it, I believe you will walk again. I don't believe you will ever ski or leap hurdles, but you may run and you will certainly swim. Thank you, Johnny said. He felt a sudden wave of affection for this man with the accent and the strange haircut. He wanted to do something for Weswick in return, and with that feeling came the urge, almost the need, to touch him. He reached out suddenly and took Weswick's hand in both of his own. The doctor's hand was big, deeply lined, warm. Yes, Weswick said kindly. And what is this? And suddenly things changed. It was impossible to say how, except that suddenly Weswick seemed very clear to him. Weswick seemed to stand forth, outlined in a lovely clear light. Every mark and mole and line on Weswick's face stood in relief. And every line told its own story. He began to understand. I want your wallet, Johnny said. Weswick and Brown exchanged a startled glance. There's a picture of your mother in your wallet, and I need to have it, Johnny said. Please. How did you know that? Please. Weswick looked into Johnny's face for a moment, and then slowly dug into his smock and produced an old Lord Buxton, bulgy and out of shape. How did you know I carry a picture of my mother? She's dead. She died when the Nazis occupied Warsaw. Johnny snatched the wallet from Weswick's hand. Both he and Brown looked stunned. Johnny opened it, dismissed the plastic picture pockets, and dug in the back instead, his fingers hurrying past old business cards, receipt bills, and a canceled check, an old ticket to some political function. Came up with a small snapshot that had been laminated in plastic. The picture showed a young woman, features plain, her hair drawn back under a kerchief. Her smile was radiant and youthful. She held the hand of a young boy. Beside her was a man in a uniform of the Polish army. Johnny pressed the picture between his hands and closed his eyes, and for a moment there was darkness, and then rushing out of the darkness came a wagon. No, not a wagon, a hearse. A horse-drawn hearse. The lamps must have been muffled in black sacking. Of course, it was a hearse because there were dying by the hundreds, yes, by the thousands. No match for the Panzers. Their Wehrmacht 19th century cavalry against the tanks, machine guns, explosions, screaming, dying men, a horse in its guts blown out, and its eyes rolling wildly, showing the I thought you guys were making hamburgers. I'll be right back. Why did Nick not finish? Or did he, Belle? It's all right. And its eyes rolling wildly, showing the white, an overturned cannon behind it, and still they came. Was it comes, standing in his stirrups, his sword held high in the slanting rain of late summer 1939. His men followed him, stumbling through the mud. The torrent gun of the Nazi Tiger tank tracks him, braces him, brackets him, fires, and suddenly he is blown below the waist, and the sword flying out of his hands. And down the road is Warsaw. The Nazi wolf is loose in Europe. Really, we have to put a stop to this, Brown said, his voice far away and worried. You're overexciting yourself, Johnny. The voices came from far, far away, from a hallway in time. He's put himself in some kind of trance, Wozzeck said. Hot in here. He is sweating. He's sweating because the city's on fire, thousands are fleeing, a truck is roaring from side to side down a cobbled street, and the back of the truck is full of waving German soldiers in full scuttle helmets, and the young woman is not smiling now. She's fleeing. No reason not to flee. The child has been sent away to safety, and now the truck jumps the curb. The mud guard strikes her, shattering her hip and sending her flying through a plate glass window, and everything begins to chime. What you looking for, baby? What? All good? My dear hubby still knows how to make me laugh. Let him put it right here. Or put it over there. Yeah, I don't want it in screen. There you go. Okay. Shattering her, sending her flying through a plate glass window and into a clock shop. And everything begins to chime. Chime because of the time. The time is 6 o'clock, Johnny said thickly. His eyes had rolled up to straining, bulging whites. September 2nd, 1939, and all the cuckoo birds are singing. Oh my God, what is it we have? Wozzeck whispered. The nurse had backed up against the EEG console, her face pale and scared. Everyone is scared now because death is in the air. It's always in the air in this place. This hospital, smell of ether. They're screaming in the place of death. Poland is dead. Poland has fallen before the lightning warfare. Wehrmacht, Blitzkrieg, shattered hip. The man in the next bed calling for water. Calling. She remembers the boy is safe. What boy? She doesn't know. What boy? What is her name? She doesn't remember. Only that. The boy is safe, Johnny said thickly. Uh-huh. We have to put a stop to this, Brown repeated. How did you suggest we do that? Wozzeck asked, his voice brittle. It has gone too far to... Voices fading. The voices are under the clouds. Everything under the clouds. Europe is under the clouds of war. Everything is under the clouds, the peaks, the mountain peaks of Switzerland. Switzerland, and now her name is Borentz. Her name is Joanna Borentz, and her husband is an engineer or an architect, whichever it is that builds the bridges. He builds it in Switzerland, and there is goat's milk, goat's cheese, a baby. Oh, the labor. The labor is terrible, and she needs drugs, morphine. It's Joanna Borentz, because of the hip pain. It has mended, it has gone to sleep, but now it wakens and begins to scream as her pelvis spreads to let the baby out. Baby 1, 2, and 3, and 4. They don't come all at once, no. They are a harvest of years. They are the babies, Johnny lilted. And now he spoke in a woman's voice, not his own voice at all. It was the voice of a woman, then gibberish and song came from his mouth. What in the name of God, Brown said. Polish, it's Polish! What was it cried? His eyes were bulging, his face pale. It is the cradle song, and it is in Polish. My God, my Christ, what is it we have here? Wizik leaned forward as if to cross the years with Johnny, as if to leap them, as if to bridge. A bridge. It's in Turkey, then a bridge somewhere hot in the Far East. It is Laos? Can't tell. Lost a man here. We lost Hans there. Then a bridge in Virginia, a bridge over the Rappahannock River, and another bridge in California. We are applying for citizenship now, and we go to classes in a hot little room in the back of a post office where it always smells of glue. It is 1963, November, when we hear Kennedy has been killed in Dallas. We weep, and when the little boy salutes his father's coffin, she thinks the boy is safe. And it brings back memories of some great burning in sorrow. What boy? She dreams about the boy. It makes her head hurt, and the man dies. Helmut Berentz dies, and she and the children live in Carmel, California, in a house on can't see the street sign. It's in the dead zone, like the rowboat, like the picnic table on the lawn. It's in the dead zone, like Warsaw. The children go away. She goes to their graduation ceremonies one by one, and her hip hurts. One dies in Vietnam. The rest of them are fine. One of them is building bridges. Her name is Joanna Berentz. And late at night, alone, now she sometimes thinks of the ticking darkness. The boy is safe. Johnny looked up at them. His head felt strange. That peculiar light around where the Wizik has gone. He felt like himself again, but weak and a little pukey. He looked at the picture in his hands for a moment and then handed it back. Johnny, Brown said, "Are you all right?" "Tired," he muttered. "Can you tell us what happened to you?" He looked at Wizik. "Your mother's alive," he said. "No, Johnny, she died many years ago in the war. A German troop truck knocked her through a plate glass show window and into a clock shop," Johnny said. "She woke up in a hospital with amnesia. She had no identification, no papers. She took the name Joanna. Somebody. I didn't get that. But when the war was over, she went to Switzerland and married a Swiss engineer, I think. His specialty was building bridges. His name was Helmut Borentz. Her married name now is Joanna Borentz." The nurse's eyes were getting bigger and bigger. Dr. Brown's face was tight. Either because he had decided Johnny was having them all on, or perhaps just because he didn't like to see his neat schedule of tests disrupted, but Wezik's face was still and thoughtful. She and Helmut Borentz had 4 children, Johnny said in that same calm, washed-out voice. His job took him all over the world. He was in Turkey for a while, somewhere in the Far East, Laos, I think, maybe Cambodia. Then he came here, Virginia first, then some other places I didn't get. Finally, California. He and Joanna became U.S. citizens. Helmut Berentz is dead. One of the children has also also died. The others are alive and fine. She dreams about you sometimes. And in the dreams, she thinks the boy is safe. But she doesn't remember your name. Maybe she thinks it's too late. California? Wessex said thoughtfully. Sam, really, you mustn't encourage this, Dr. Brown said. We're in California, John. Carmel, by the sea. But I couldn't tell which street. It was there, but I couldn't tell. It was in a dead zone, like the picnic table and the rowboat. But she's in Carmel, California, Joanne Barentz. She's not old. No, of course she would not be old, Sam Wessex said in that same thoughtful, distant tone. She was only 24 when the Germans invaded Poland. Dr. Wessex, I have to insist, Brown said harshly. Wessex seemed to come out of a deep study. He looked around as if noticing the younger colleague for the first time. Of course,